When I came to this interview, I left my home in Vermont as an isolated individual, drove a car to Boston, took an airplane to New York, came to this interview without people around me. I was safe. In the Middle Ages, human beings were not able to move from one place to another without having other people around them who could protect them.
Florence, fabulous window on the past. Down these same streets walked the monks, soldiers, and merchant princes of Machiavelli's time, as well as artists whose names and work are today as famous as his. We are now in the age of Michelangelo, Leonardo, Columbus and Copernicus, of England's Henry VIII, and of Germany's Martin Luther and the Protestant Reformation. It is a turbulent time of conflict and contradiction. New ideas and new technologies are rocking Europe like a great earthquake. The medieval system is collapsing, and the idea that man is master of his fate is just beginning to take root. It is the Renaissance, the April of Western civilization, and the concept of government as a purely human invention is one of its flowers. But April is a cruel month. Giuliano de' Medici, murdered in the great cathedral by a rival family, the Pazzi. It was a plot blessed by the sitting Pope to overthrow the de facto rule of the Medici in Florence. Such were the times. Politics was a family matter. Medici retribution was swift and brutal. Several conspirators, including an archbishop, were slaughtered where they were caught, and their bodies hung from the windows of City Hall. The last one sketched as it hung by Leonardo da Vinci. Religion, too, seemed often a kind of family affair. Princes of the church had concubines. Popes had children. Lucretia and Cesare Borgia, brother and sister and lovers, also had wealth and power thanks to their sire, Pope Alexander VI, who gives the term godfather a whole other meaning. Italy was an anarchy of city-states, popes and other princes in constantly shifting alliances, murders in the cathedral, and orgies in the Vatican were the debris of a crumbling medieval order. This was the world of Niccolo Machiavelli. The separation of politics and religion was to become for him a major theme. Getting religion out of politics was an idea with legs. Its mirror image would appear in America, whose founding fathers were trying to get politics out of religion. They would write it into their Constitution as the separation of church and state. We have not seen the end of controversies ignited by that idea, and it does have a dark side.
That separation between ethics and politics, the belief that the good prince is not necessarily the good man, that appearance matters more than reality, that deception can be practiced, that it is better to be feared than loved, all those famous conclusions of the prince are ones that have eternally struck people as the most difficult and indeed painful question about politics, and they don't want to confront it. They don't want to believe that someone thought those things.
Was the man who did think those things a Christian, a pagan, an atheist?
Machiavelli was a Sunday Christian. He did not dispute the essential dogmas of the Catholic faith. He simply put them to one side when he came to think and talk about politics at all.
If Machiavelli's Prince seems to have a lot of moral leeway, the price for that is fairly steep. He must love his country more than his soul. He must be prepared to go to hell for it.
To kill a man is still to kill a man. And a prince has to be ready to do it. He has to be ready to go to hell. Being in charge, being a ruler, being a prince is intrinsically a tragic job, and without redemption and without justification.
Machiavelli found it possible to live with contradictory views, and therefore not to see himself, as he came very quickly to be seen, as anti-Christian or anything of the kind.
Some think I should teach men the way to heaven, but I would rather teach them the way to hell, so they'll know how to go around it.
The Medici were exiled in 1494, when Charles VIII of France rode unopposed into Florence on his way to other conquests. Niccolò Machiavelli was 27. The city, long a republic in name, became again a republic in fact. Its first leader was a fiery, puritanical, but very popular monk named Savonarola, who denounced the corruption of the church and was responsible for two of history's more notable bonfires. On one, Savonarola burned books and artworks. On the other, the church burned Savonarola. The spot is marked today in front of City Hall, where a few weeks later, Niccolò went to work for the Republican government of Piero Soderini.
Machiavelli worked for the committee that was in charge of defense and foreign affairs. He took care of the needs of the military, and he went on special missions to foreign courts.
And then he was all throughout Italy. He met many lords and rulers, and naturally among them is Cesare Borgia.
Borgia is a legend in his own time of ruthlessness and depravity. In one instance, Borgia invites his enemies to peace talks and has them all killed.
That was the main impression that he got from Borgia, this cold blood and this capacity of using violence, let's say, well, crudeltà bene usata, that is for a very lucid political goal, not just a display of power, but in a very functional way.
Signori, felice di vedervi. Fatto un viaggio. Finalmente sono tornato a Firenze. Bentornato.
When he returns from these missions, a doting but impatient staff confronts him with a mountain of domestic details and problems.
I francesi sono bellissimi. Ci sono dei problemi? È successo qualcosa? Tu sei stato bene, ma loro vogliono usufruire del potere. Ora devono pagare.
But Niccolò has weightier things on his mind. He is a visionary, an Italian patriot convinced that only a single forceful leader can unify Italy, and he knows that independence will require a citizen army.
Machiavelli believed that the mercenary armies that characterized the military system of Renaissance Italy, and indeed of much of Europe, were a terrible mistake, that the Romans had used civic militias, that every state should use its own citizens, that only in this way could you get the commitment and ethos of civilians to express themselves in the defense of the state, and that would have very good results in terms of the internal laws, institutions, and ethos of the state as well.
Machiavelli sells the idea, and in a war with neighboring Pisa, his citizen soldiers perform moderately well. But in 1512, they meet hardened Spanish troops at a town named Prado. The Spanish mercenaries panic Machiavelli's militia, and a ghastly slaughter follows. In the wake of this rout, the Medici return to end the Soderini Republic, and with it, Machiavelli's political career. In Niccolò's view, The feckless Soderini could have squashed the Medici return had he been sufficiently ruthless. Leadership requires more than plans and policies.